Giles can be wrong and he's wrong here. Yeah, it is Ringo on the drums. I am 1000% sure.
What the hell was that?
That was John and Paul, I think.
Interesting,
When is that
right?
from?
87.
Wow. I didn't have any clue that we had a quote like that. That's a game changer.
Hey guys, welcome back to Gear There and Everywhere. I am joined by my co-hosts Ryan, Michael, and Dom. Paul is away right now on family duty, so we miss him. Today we are talking about Old Brown Shoe, the George Harrison song that actually has quite the controversy about who played bass, who played drums. Actually got into a conversation with Michael maybe like a year ago about the drums because Giles Martin, the 2019 Abbey Road box set, he claims that Paul had to have played drums because Ringo was away filming Magic Christian. And Michael, what do you think of that?
He's wrong. Giles can be wrong and he's wrong here. Yeah, it is Ringo on the drums. I am 1000% sure. And just so you know that I'm not just saying that, I have receipts. So Ryan, if you could prepare the sound clips I brought.
Are we going right into it?
Yeah, I do have the case for Ringo on drums.
All right, you want me to? Yeah. You got anything else
jump
to say
right
about
in.
it, or jump right into the drums?
So I think instead of me just explaining drumming, I think it's more intuitive just to hear it. So the first clip is just the shuffle piece of the Old Brown Shoe drumming. Can you play the shuffle real quick?
Yeah. Well, just as a quick background, so I understand. The drumming was all done on like the basic track. There wasn't drum overdubs, right?
Yeah, so the basic track is pretty basic. It's drums, piano, and guitar.
Okay, no bass.
No vocals. None of that yet. That was
Like,
overdubbed.
Scratch vocals, but yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, guide vocals, but
But
everything
no
else was
bass,
overdubed.
so there's only 3 Beatles possibly.
And it's
on
an
the
acoustic guitar, is that right?
Electric.
Okay, I've already entirely forgotten.
We'll
the
get into
guitar
it.
part.
We'll get into it. But let's hear the drums.
Yeah, let's do drums.
Oh, yeah, that's gotta
Great
be
groove.
Ringo, dude.
So this is the heart of my case. It's a shuffle. It's a complicated bass drum pattern. And while I have a lot of evidence that I'll go through, clip number 2 is what goes on, slowed down and isolated, overlaid with that. This alone proves that it was Ringo. So play that clip next.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wow.
Case closed.
That's
And the
Ringo
show.
on drums.
All right, that's it.
That's
Have a good
it.
night, guys.
That is cool.
So just for the sake of being thorough, I have a few more clips. So the next one I think is the video.
That's almost identical, actually.
It's very close. It's
Wait,
very
hang
close.
on.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you go back a second? I like froze for a second there.
There's
Just say
a
like
lag.
just for the sake of just
Ryan,
say-
stop fucking things up. Ruining my case. This is all going to stay in, by the way. So, I think that is very conclusive on its own. I think I could probably stop now and convince you all that was Ringo. But just to be as thorough as I can, I have a lot more evidence. So I think what makes the most sense next is to play a video clip from the early 2000s. And this is Paul recording a song for Klaus Voormann in his home studio in England. And Paul is offering to do a drum track, even though Ringo is scheduled later to do his own track. And Paul very clearly says, you know, I can do a shuffle, but it's a basic shuffle. I can't do what Ringo can do here. And he's miming the exact shuffle on Old Brown Shoe. And you'll see it in the clip. So Ryan, do me a solid. Pull up the video clip.
Roll the tape.
I'm tempted to stick drums on it, but piss Ringo off. Piss Ringo off, isn't it? Just to piss him off. You what were you watching? I couldn't do the shuffle like Ringo. He's a he'd be able to do that much better. But I can sort of do the boom, 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 boom.
You can stop right there. So that was Paul explaining that Ringo is a better shuffle player than he is, and then demonstrating how limited his ability at the shuffle is. So that's pretty convincing evidence too, and he's even miming what Ringo does in his traditional shuffle, which is on Old Brown Shoe. I'm crushing it, right? Like, this is
Yeah,
Ringo.
it's-
Absolutely.
This is a lot
convinced.
more definitive than most of the stuff we do.
Well, we're going to keep going. So if we wanted to hear how Paul would play it, we actually do have audio from the Get Back sessions of Paul playing along when I think George first brings it in the studio, January 27th, and we have Ringo's first attempt playing the song. My clip is January 28th, so it's kind of a cleaner performance. So Ryan, if you could play the January 27th outtake of Paul playing along, we can hear how he would approach the drumming, at least a first pass.
On the
Yeah,
guitar.
let's hear the full context.
And just since we're here, this is in the video, so maybe I
Yep.
should just
So
show
it's
this.
it's definitely Paul.
And I
'cause
get
we
to
have video of it.
See
Yeah.
what Paul walk over there.
He's struggling.
Now, is he interesting note that he's using brushes there? Is that on the actual
I think
song,
they
is it
both
brushes?
were. Yeah, there's a Paul performance with brushes too the same day. So if you play the next clip, it's actually the isolated drumming from
Okay.
that clip. Yeah,
He's
you
not
can
using
hear what
brushes
Paul's
on the
doing.
records, is he?
No,
Okay.
That,
Full
that's what
six.
I was asking.
Yeah.
There's brushes on the record.
no. So it's a pretty straightforward shuffle. It's not terrible. Nothing too complicated on the bass drum. I think he's playing 1 and 3, so he can do a shuffle.
But it's not the
Nothing too,
syncopated upbeat that is on the record.
Right, so that's a great transition to the January 28th clip of Ringo after a day of hearing the song. Listen to what is definitively Ringo playing Old Brown Shoe, January 28th.
And now I'm stepping out this old brown shoe. Baby, I'm in love with you. So glad you came in. It won't be the same now, I'm telling you. You know you hold me up from worse and try to drive.
So which one sounds more like the record?
The second one.
That one.
Ringo.
Ringo's shuffle is so distinctive. You know?
Which is another great transition. Very well said.
But
So
wait,
I have a
there's
part
more.
2 here.
But wait.
There we go. So Ryan, pull up the second email.
Okay.
I have been dismayed by a lot of opinions about Paul's drumming versus Ringo's. And I don't mean that as a slam on Paul, because Paul is a very competent drummer. But for folks to say, like, Paul's doing the outro part of Dear Prudence, Paul, is equal to Ringo, that joke went around that Ringo isn't even the best drummer in the Beatles, it's all complete bullshit. Like, Ringo was a 10 out of 10 as a drummer, Paul was maybe a 5 or a 6. And I think the point and how this relates to Old Brown Shoe is I think that shuffle is one of the more difficult things a drummer can do, and one of the more difficult patterns Ringo did. And I'd like to illustrate that by showing a few highlights that demonstrate Paul's style of drumming versus Ringo's, because it is pretty easy to tell them apart. So, Ryan, play the Paul drum highlight compilation. This takes from the Old Brown Shoe swing pattern. It isolates the swing from the Klaus Vormann performance, so we hear what a Paul swing sounds like. Then we've got the My Dark Hour, Steve Miller song, Isolated, Back in the USSR, and the Ballad of John and Yoko. All songs that we know Paul played the drums on. It's about a minute long, but this should give you a sense for Paul's drumming talent and limitations. Basic shuffle, nothing too complicated. Another shuffle. This is back in the USSR. I think this is his most impressive drumming performance.
Sped up a bit, though.
And this is Ballad of John and Yoko.
He
So
definitely.
he's not bad.
He always had this sort of like open, like I think he's described. I don't know a specific quote, but like I feel like I've heard him describe something about like just sort of having fun on the drums, where you can visually see he does this like these big arcs with his arms.
Right. Yeah, he's competent. He can keep the beat fine. I think the biggest difference is if he does a fill, it's extremely linear. It's basically just butta 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 butta, and he keeps it on one drum. He'll do the fill entirely on the tom or entirely on the snare, which is an antithesis of what Ringo did. He had the swing feel, not linear. He would alternate between the floor tom, rack tom, and the snare. And there's really I don't think Ringo ever just stays on one drum.
I almost feel like
rare.
Paul was interpreting fills differently. Like he thought of sort of like he was doing these like slower movements across multiple, but like it was like a slower version of a fill or something like that.
I just think Paul may have been limited. I don't know if he had the skill to switch between tom and floor tom rapidly. And to illustrate that and the difference between, like the chasm between his skills and Ringo's, play the Ringo drum highlights clip. This has elements of a BBC recording, Long Tall Sally, Act Naturally, Oh Darling, She's a Woman, the live performance from Hollywood Bowl, and then it ends with the Old Brown Shoe isolation. You're going to hear a lot of skill on the bass drum that Paul doesn't have. You're going to hear fills that alternate between drums. And what I think is just, far and away a much better drummer.
No thank you, girl mention?
I had limited space on this one.
Also, I just
Maybe
as
next time.
one follow-up just quickly for the Paul thing is just I almost feel like his drumming is like equivalent to his granny music or something like that. Like it fits that style more than it fits another style. So it's almost like canonically accurate to Paul, if that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah, it's
also,
not bad drumming, too.
Right.
Like for back in
Ringo-
the USSR, it might fit the song
It's
better than
decent,
what
yeah.
Ringo would have done.
right. Well, Ringo also, should be said, was a country music fan, and that shuffle beat on Help, on Act Naturally, it's really hard. Like, I've tried to do it before, and I've bled, like, blisters. It's incredible that he can do that with the kick drum, too.
Yeah.
And Old Brown Shoe is really fast, even faster than some of those songs. So
That just shows you how kick-ass he was as a drummer.
People say he's underrated, and yet we still discover new ways in which he was underrated the more we study him. Yeah, I think when you hear
Completely.
the She's a Woman clip that I'll play in just a second, the fast hi-hat shuffle and the quick doubles on the bass drum, I've tried it. It's close to impossible, especially to play it as consistently as he does without a mistake.
Just a quick note on Ringo, what makes him so good as a drummer. I know, we've talked about it before. Maybe not on the podcast, but I know we've talked about it. He was a true professional. He played to serve the song. He didn't like soloing. They had to convince him to do the drum solo on the end. He didn't want to do that. He played to serve the song, and I think that's one of the most important things about being a musician.
He was
You're not
always
cocky.
ready to go. And actually,
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up. I know we want to do the clip in a second, but I was just reading the Mal Evans book. And I actually think that I believe it's Ringo even more now, because with Giles, his theory is that Ringo was filming in London. He couldn't get to the session. He was filming in London, and in this book, you see how Ringo's ready to go at any moment. He was filming, going back and forth between studios. He was ready to go at any moment. So I think he just got a ride and just drummed.
And this is for the Magic Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
I totally believe it. That's in Ringo's nature.
Yeah. Well, let's play the clip.
Yeah.
Come on.
You want to walk us through which one's which?
This is I'm gonna sit right down and cry over you. This is Long Tall Sally. Towards the end of the song. One of the most kick-ass moments in rock history. Which Paul could not do. This is Act Naturally. Listen for the bass drum. This is Oh Darling. This is She's a Woman Live. Listen to the bass drum. Old Brown Shoe.
Okay,
It's
great
Ringo.
stuff.
It's
proved
100% Ringo.
You did it, Michael.
I've done it.
Solve the case.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Well, that's just part one of, I guess, 4 almost for this
I
song.
do want to ask, speaking as someone who's not a drummer, I mean, I can't really do drums. How hard is it really to do a shuffle like that?
Extremely hard. I've tried it, and I can keep it up for about 5 seconds before it starts to get sloppy.
Yeah.
With Ringo, I think what's amazing, and especially it comes through in what goes on, he can do it for minutes.
And sing
without
over it.
A single mistake. And sing over it.
Right.
He's a computer. That's very, very difficult.
And those
'Cause he's
are
got
outtakes, too.
That
Like,
eighth note
multiple
thing going
takes,
on
yeah.
on the hi-hats.
Yeah,
Right.
he's got the swing on the hi-hat, he's
Swung
hitting the
eighths,
snare,
yeah.
and he's doing the bass drum pattern. Yeah. Yeah, it's a
He's a
level of
computer.
skill.
Yeah.
He's a computer. Yep.
It's insane.
So, if I could, I think we all can say Michael did a great job and proved it was Ringo. So that begs another question, because the personnel, so originally before Abbey Road box set came out, the personnel was George on electric guitar, John vocals, Paul tack piano, and Ringo drums. So Mark Lewison originally said Ringo was on drums. Giles then in 2019 said the lineup was George on guitar, John on piano, and Paul on drums. And I think now that, we can say Ringo is definitely on drums, that means there's only 2 other Beatles, a piano and a guitar, and we have to figure out who played what. So I think it's interesting, the Get Back clips, because that was 2 months before the actual recording of Old Brown Shoe. You see George on piano and Paul on guitar at one point. So that's a good clue. I just want to bring up one thing, because, or actually maybe Ryan, you could play the outtake from the Abbey Road box set, because you can hear drums, tack piano, and guitar, and George singing scratch.
Okay, let's do that.
So it sounds great. I think there's something interesting to be said, because it could go either way. George singing while playing piano, you see him do that Also, he could be playing guitar and singing. If you zoom ahead to the bridge, there's a fast guitar riff that goes like, it's very fast, and George sings while, if he is on guitar, he had to be singing while playing that riff, which I've tried to do. I find it almost impossible, so that could be a good clue for George on piano.
Not worrying what they or you say.
What do you guys think? I feel like it's, he could be doing that, but he wouldn't be singing so efficiently and playing so efficiently.
I think it's George on piano with that, for sure.
Well,
because he already had it. He already knew what he was doing on the piano. He's playing it in the Get Back movie.
He wrote it on piano.
Right.
But that would imply that Paul's on guitar doing that?
Yeah, that's what we're implying.
Well, that's another question is, if it's not George on guitar, is it John or Paul?
Or
Ringo.
Ryan, what were you going to say, though?
Does George have to be playing something on that take? Could he just be singing? I mean, obviously he's doing the count-in, but...
At the end of the outtake, you hear George break down the take as the piano stops and the guitar keeps going and the drums keep going. So I feel like it's got to be George on piano. That's just my opinion.
Let me play that bit real quick.
It sounds like George on piano to me. Paul would have played those little licks a bit more melodically.
We can hear... I just heard Paul's voice in the background there. What? Is that...
Or is it John?
Hang on.
Can't
I gotta listen to that again. Hang on.
You guys are gonna... You guys are gonna call me absolutely ridiculous here in a minute.
Let's
So,
hear it.
that guitar tone sounds like the muddiness of P90 pickups.
I agree. That's why I have my casino out today.
Yeah. And again, you kind of have to know your pickups and the tonal qualities of humbuckers, P90s, single coils. I mean, P90s are single coils, but they're wound, I think, a little bit hotter. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But they're muddy. That guitar tone's muddy, and if it's Paul going through a Fender Twin, would it be a Twin?
Probably.
Probably around that time, yeah. Again, it just kind of reinforces my case of Paul on guitar. I'm kind of convinced at this point.
I also think that John would have trouble playing something like
Completely
that fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also...
I'd be surprised if Paul could play that too, as similarly as George played it in his guitar demo, because George is playing that riff too.
Is he?
I guess he may have communicated to Paul how he wanted to play it, but
If
to me
he's
it
not
sounds-
I didn't know that was in a demo.
yeah,
Can we pull that
it's
up?
on the anthology, I think.
Anthology, yeah.
Oh, good point. I forgot about that.
But
I
if
didn't
Paul's
know about
not singing, he might have an easier time doing it.
that. Right, give me 1 second.
That's a great point. Yeah, if you can't sing and do it, then it has to be George on piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the released version, those guitars are doubled. The ones doing the there's two of them, so someone had to overdub what they had done before, which it'd be unlikely that George would then overdub what someone else had done, in my opinion. But
All right, well, let me pull up the demo. Neither of you sent that to me, did you?
No, I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
I think
readily
it's
available.
I think it's George on Lucy Les Paul. It sounds very warm on the demo. I think it was similar to Something. He also demoed in a similar way.
Right, and I think All Things Must Pass also.
Mm-hmm. It's on Anthology 3, I think.
I'm not certain he plays the riff, but I think he does. Yeah, there it is. Not exactly.
Yeah, it varies sort of on each one. It
Yeah.
changes a little bit.
Well, can I...
Is this all George for sure?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's all George. Okay. And it kind of brings me to my next point if we were ready to move on, because it makes it even more complicated in... Oh, God, where is it? 1 second.
And
There's
that
a
take
quote from
two,
George.
that take two is from April 16th. Is that right?
Yes. So in a 1987 interview, George Harrison recalled that he was the bass guitarist, not McCartney on the track. He said, the bass part sounds like McCartney was going nuts again. That was me going nuts again. I'm doing on the bass exactly what I do on the guitar. Interesting,
When is that
right?
from?
1987.
Wow. I didn't have any clue that we had a quote like that. That's a game changer.
Yeah, but it's weird because he can't have been on guitar for the basic track. I mean, that's our theory, so it's confusing.
Just thinking outside the box, it's not possible Billy Preston's on the piano, is it? Because he's there in the Get Back sessions over George's shoulder, learning the
He's
piano
not
part with him.
listed as being in the sessions, and also that solo at the end
Yeah, you're right. Good point.
was so bad.
It's way beneath his skill level. Yeah.
That's
So the
yeah,
bass-
that's confusing.
The bass was definitely something I wanted to touch on because it's been debated for so long, for as long as I've known about the song, and I'm sure it goes back even farther than that. Obviously, that's at least as far back as 1987. So that interview, Sam, was for Cream magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Now that the interviewer remarked that the bass playing on this song was, quote, McCartney going nuts again, and that prompted George to reply, that's me going nuts, doing exactly what I do on guitar. So that's a Fender jazz bass. That's my opinion, at least. I don't know if you guys would agree. It's either the jazz bass or
The bass
if
6,
George
maybe.
is playing bass, it'd be a bass 6.
But we know he had played on Maxwell Silverhammer, the jazz
Yeah.
bass, like within a month of that, right?
Yeah.
Can we play a clip? Do we have an isolated bass clip from the song? I agree. I think it's the bass 6.
Let me see what I have. I don't actually know.
That fill would be much easier to play on a bass 6 too.
Completely.
Yeah.
That is true. All right, give me a sec. We can explore what I have.
Sam, would you be able to grab yours
Bass 6, yeah.
and demonstrate? Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
This is just the final mix.
Yeah, that's a bass 6.
That sounds more like bass 6 than jazz bass to me, and
Right.
I do think that the jazz bass was on Helter Skelter now. So, but this does sound more like a bass 6. Because it doesn't sound like bridge or neck on a jazz bass, and it doesn't sound like them together.
So the intro. And then
Try it up the octave.
Yeah, that's where it is, I think.
Now, do you find that easier than saying, and playing it on like a P bass?
That'd be
or a
really
jazz
hard
bass?
on jazz bass, yeah.
Yeah.
it's hard to say. I mean, he's saying he did it like the guitar. I had an interesting thought too, because George is quoted as the riff on Drive My Car, that thing, he actually calls it me doing a bass line. So it's kind of funny. He didn't play the bass on that. So it's interesting the way George refers to things. He could be wrong. I mean, there's got to be something going on because he's saying he's playing the guitar on the track.
But there's that
Or saying
guitar.
it.
The guitar doubles the bass part on Drive My Car for that bit, or something like it.
It does. So he's calling the guitar line the bass line,
Right. I see what you're
and
saying.
vice versa. I think it's totally possible. It's a jazz bass too. Some people
Just
think
the
it's
act of
Paul on
sliding up and
Rickenbacker.
playing the
too.
riff is not too bad up here.
I would have thought it was a jazz bass just based on the Maxwell Silverhammer thing, but the tone sounds more like a bass 6 to me.
Now, I want to cover all the bases here. Get it?
No pun intended.
But if we do support the argument, hypothetically, that Paul played bass on this, his two options three would have been either the jazz bass, the Rick, or the Hofner. Now, the Hofner, there's no way it's the Hofner. It doesn't have that, tonal quality of almost an upright. But I feel like a convincing argument could be made that it may be the Rick. Do you guys think that would have been plausible? If Paul's playing bass on that.
I don't know as much about what a Rick sounds like because I've never owned one.
Can you play it again real quick? Just the 4-note bass intro from the clip?
Because it almost sounds like a Rick.
I just want to hear
Now,
it. I've never
is
thought of it
the-
as a Rick.
On the intro, it's an octave lower, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but like later on, it goes up an octave.
That's not a riff.
That's a bass 6.
That's a bass 6. Yeah, I agree.
What makes
It
you say
has-
that? I'm just curious.
Well, it doesn't have the sort of quacky tone of the middle position on the jazz bass, and it doesn't have the bright sound of the bridge pickup on the jazz bass, and it doesn't sound like it's just a neck pickup. So it
It
sounds
has
like
no
it's multiple
punchiness of the
pickups.
Rickenbacker played at that part of the neck.
It has that sort of like almost like the Rickenbacker doesn't get that crunchy compressed sound, but the bass 6 does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
agree.
wanted to make sure that we touched on it before we moved on, because
Sure.
I thought it was worth mentioning at least.
We're completists. Yep.
I think it's funny at this point we have John appearing on 0% of the song, which is not uncommon for John.
Yeah, well, John
Beatles
was done
fans.
by this point, basically.
All right. So, if
Although he
George-
was there that day.
He was in the backing vocals too.
Can we back up and talk about what was done which day? Because there's the day of the basic track and then day of overdubs. Were any overdubs done on the first day or no?
I'm not sure, but I know, the guitar solo is 100% George on a Rosewood Telly through
Completely.
a Leslie. That's just a given. There's organ also added. I'm not sure when. Let me see here.
And maybe it's we know it's that the guitar and the piano and drums on the basic track, and we're saying bass gets added, an organ gets added, and a guitar solo gets added. And you said something gets doubled, right? The
so
guitar riff.
What it seems like is George recorded his lead vocals the same day in the control room with the monitors blasting, which is really unusual. And then 2 days later, it was all George overdubbing. At least that's what this person is saying, that George overdubbed his double track guitar solo. He overdubbed the Hammond organ himself. And then also the guitar, the doubled guitar riff was overdubbed that day as well, it seems. But look how much has already been gotten wrong with the list, personnel list and everything. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
hard to
this is
say.
a lot more George than I would have thought to begin with, actually.
It's the only song ever with George on piano, right? The only one. The only Beatles song.
I think you're right.
And that's pretty amazing right there.
Does he play any of that stuff on You Like Me Too Much?
He plays
Or-
organ.
Or
No, I think that's George Martin.
Oh no, sorry. I was thinking of It's All Too Much.
oh yeah,
plays
No,
organ.
Oh, yeah,
That's
you're
all
Plays
right.
organ.
Yeah, that's
on
organ.
Blue Jay
Yeah.
Way
And Blue
things
Jay
like
Way.
that.
Only a northern song.
And who's
Yeah.
playing on why can't the one on Revolver? Why can't I remember?
I
I
want
The
to
one
tell
that-
you.
you.
Yeah, I want to tell you. It also has that minor
it's
second
Paul,
thing
right?
going on. Is that also Paul?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
George is on the Strat.
Mhm.
See, that's kind of interesting because George was big on that minor second thing on piano. It's on that song and on this one. But it does seem really unusual to me if Paul's actually not on this at all, because so far it seems pointing that way. I'm
You mean
not
the basic
surprised.
track? The
Well,
whole thing.
We're saying he's on guitar, the rhythm guitar.
I guess we're saying he's on guitar. Does the rhythm guitar, like, George obviously doubled that guitar part. Does it the tonally match, or did they sound different?
That's the thing, is they sound very similar. If you want
That
to play,
seems
like,
odd.
we wouldn't hear it in stereo because of the recording, but like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel like whoever played on the basic had to overdub.
The same
Not-
thing.
I don't know, not necessarily, but it makes
Well,
sense.
I mean, we did see Paul playing the Telecaster in the video, so maybe he used the Telecaster on the actual song.
Sounds like a casino to me. Can we pull up isolated
Right.
guitar
Yeah, you guys did
from
say
YouTube or
you
something?
did say casino before. Yeah, we could try.
We could probably figure out which guitar it is just from hearing it. With our
kind of sounds
powers
like
combined.
the bridge pickup with the tone rolled down, which is
Yep.
kind of common for
I agree,
Paul
100%.
and John.
Oh, and just real quick before we go there, this is the day of the overdub. There's 4 photos. It's April 18th. And so there's a photo. All you see is John and George.
Smoking a joint.
And I think it's just those 4 photos, and that's it. And you'll see George is playing the Rosewood Telly there. and he's got it in his hand there. And also the Rocky is leaned up against something here in the front. So it seems like he's playing a Rosewood Telly, maybe for the solo.
So on this day, all the overdubs happened?
I wasn't actually sure. That's what I was asking Sam before.
Maybe besides the lead vocals, it
Hang
seems.
on, let me double check.
I'm not entirely sure.
A lot was overdubbed. Bass, the guitar riffs, the vocal,
Well,
the
George
organ, the guitar
When
solo.
George got an ability to overdub stuff, he did a lot. Like, I'm thinking back to, like, It's Only Love. It's arguable he overdubbed, like, basically all the guitars on that. It can be assumed that it features George on piano and vocals. And then
That's the demo.
Is this the demo? Oh, okay, at 7 p.m. Okay. He doesn't make any claims here, it doesn't seem.
Seems like he's saying Ringo's on drums, though,
here we
in
go.
that take two.
George Paul on Jangle Box.
That's
track
the
4.
Mrs. Mills piano.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So is that the basic track? They're saying Paul's on the tack piano,
This-
George is on telly.
I believe this is as of the 2019 release. This is what they said.
That's not what Giles said, but that's what this Beatles ebooks, which is pretty good generally.
Okay, I just want to see overdubs. George. Oh, that's a different.
So this says
George
Paul's on
overdub.
bass guitar.
And
George
he had said Paul was on piano before, so that would make sense if the guitars were the same. But yeah, that's mimicking. Yeah, this is very confusing.
That's why we're
the
doing
quote
this.
You said, yeah.
Can we hear? This might not even be worth it, but can we hear the isolated basic track
Oh yeah,
guitar?
we were going to. Sorry.
Yeah. We could probably tell if it's a George part or a Paul part,
Or
just
did you
based on their
we just wanted
styles.
to hear this stuff on the full thing?
Yeah.
Well, here's the bass. And this is the Maxwell Silverhammer photos.
Yeah. Placeholder.
There's quite a bit of like low end added to this.
Sam, what do you think?
I can't tell if that extra stuff is just bleed from other stuff or if that's actually
It's not a great isolation. I feel like there's some little things happening that are very Paul, like little slide ups. I don't know.
there. And then let's
Can we skip to the little crazy fill on the bass real quick?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I just want to hear that fill. Yeah, it's not a great isolation.
It still sounds like a bass 6 to me though. Where is that second guitar added? Is it just right underneath the first one?
It's usually in stereo. We probably won't be able to hear it, but yeah, it's underneath.
Well, that didn't help a whole lot.
We've gotten nowhere. Well, I feel like we're on a trajectory, but it's like, is George wrong in his 80s interview, or did he overdub onto Paul's guitar? There's a lot of questions still. I don't know, but we know that Ringo played the drums.
Well, yeah, I would really hope so.
Like, it seems, well, just to rule it out, it seems pretty unlikely that John's on this. Like, for this, he might be on vocals, but that like we said before, that part, the da 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 da, or the da 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 da, that bit, that yeah,
No, can't be.
and that's on the bass and the guitar part, so he's just not there. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like it's interesting, like, if George did sing the basic track and do that fast riff, like, that's incredible. Like the let me turn my sound. I'm gonna sing terribly right now, but I'm just gonna show you how hard that would be. Like, I made it like, that's crazy.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, but
That was
like,
damn
that's
good.
really hard.
I think the
Now-
odds are more likely that it was performed as we saw in the Get Back movie. George is at the piano.
Yeah,
Ringo's
because
on the drums.
that's
George's
something we didn't really
song.
talk about. The piano part doesn't really change at all from the January stuff to
Yeah.
later on. It's like almost identical, right?
I haven't like studied it, but it sounds very similar, if not exactly the same.
It's a little too sloppy for Paul on piano now.
It's not a complicated part either.
I'm gonna actually try to use what's it called, la 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 la, to make a better extraction. I think that's what it's called.
That's a
Don't
great
laugh at me.
software. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys
But-
keep chatting. I'm gonna try to pull isolations.
Is
That'll
this
work.
song is kind of in the same category as "For You Blue"?
Yeah.
Is that right? Where he's sort of like, you don't want to use my songs. Let me write some simple stuff for you, since my stuff's apparently too complicated. And that was somewhat for John, because John was, heroined out of his mind and
Well, it was
couldn't
an
do more than
interesting
3 chords.
story. Interesting story about John complaining about the complexity of George's tunes. You guys are all familiar with "Let It Down." That song is filled with major 7 chords, and they're doing it, and John's like, "This is ridiculous. What the hell are major 7 chords? There's too many of them."
Yeah,
in here."
then it goes to like C, G, F sharp, F, E. Like, it's, yeah. And this one has augmented chords in it, and it goes to the A flat. I feel like John couldn't have even been on it because there were too many chords.
But he was too strung out to even be present. So, yeah.
While I'm doing this, I wanted to mention a point there too, which is I think it's sad that they couldn't just incorporate more George in the later work, because this may get me some comments, but George's songs were better than John's songs at this point.
Ditto.
What he was bringing to the studio, I Me Mine, Old Brown Shoe, For You Blue. What did John have? Dig a Pony? I guess Don't Let Me Down was the highlight, but like,
Yeah.
I think George easily surpassed John at this point.
And
He flourished into a killer
revived,
songwriter.
Mean Mr. Mustard from a year before. Well, I guess 6 months. But
Polythene Pam, yeah.
and also Across the Universe. So
Even
across
like
the-
George's just playing that Dylan song on the acoustic was infinitely more compelling than most of John's songs on the entire album. Like George
it
was
is-
peaking.
it's funny how like you do see, like, obviously people rave about how Paul comes in the studio a whole bunch during the sessions and be like, "Oh, I whipped this up last night. Here, let's see what it is." But George does that too. He does that with I Me Mine, and he does that with this one. I guess he did it with For You Blue. I'm not actually sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But,
he does. He shows up in Twickenham with For You Blue on guitar. It's amazing.
So, yeah, and maybe some of that is that like he hadn't been sitting on these for forever. He just like was like, "Oh, I can make something simple in a day," unlike maybe his other stuff, which he'd probably been working on for a bit longer.
You know what I want to know is what GigaChad Paul would have to say right now.
Oh yeah, let's get a quick fly-in message from Paul.
Old Brown Shoe song sucks.
Well, thank you for
Now
the
that
kind,
that's over, back to our regularly scheduled
Thank you for the
programming.
kind words, Paul. Only those types of words could come from you.
So Ryan,
Oh,
I
yeah, let me
did
check
the
again.
isolations. I actually think it might be best to play just the instrumental track. I separated the vocal
Okay.
out. Yeah, that one we can hear all the instruments. Oh, maybe it does.
That seems less crunchy there than it did on
Yeah,
the
it
other one
sounds
we listened to.
different.
You think that was something with like the monitor speakers or something like that?
It
I
could
don't
have
know,
been.
That one sounds a lot less crunchy than the other one did.
It could be AI nonsense, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds better.
What'd you think about that little bit at the end there?
Which instrument?
The end of the bass at the end of the bridge. Yeah, that was kind of vague, I guess.
Play it again. Yeah. Oh man, that's very Paul.
Okay. Well, that's an easy one. That's the Rosewood Telly through the Leslie,
Telly.
right?
Totally.
And that's also double tracked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Solo double track? Really?
Yep. Yeah, you can hear it in the
Oh my gosh.
the scream.
I didn't notice that before.
I love that.
Is that John?
The scream.
There's a scream right there.
I've never heard that.
Screaming
Well,
bloody
they-
murder.
Oh,
Yoko.
there's John, I guess.
That was horrifying.
That's John, right?
I don't know.
Play it again. Play it again.
Look, though, that's like the Wilhelm scream, dude.
Could be
That
Paul.
sounds like John. Yeah, I don't
There's
know.
no way that has to be an AI artifact. There's no way.
All right. Well, now this I
that's
think
in.
they're.
You can hear that in the record too.
Oh,
It's definitely in
I'm
Let me
there.
getting
try
really-
the isolated vocal. Hold on.
I'm getting really confused on whether or not this. What's happening here?
It's
getting-
breaking Ryan's brain.
Well, I'm getting confused because of the. I'm not sure what of this is AI artifacts because now it sounds like the bass is double tracked too.
What if it is? Oh my god.
What mix did you use?
Now the guitar solo sounds double tracked.
No,
It
that's
is.
what we
the
said.
bass
It
is
is.
dubbing the
Guitar
or
solo.
the
is double track.
guitar is playing the bass line too.
Michael,
so that
what
is
mix did you
most.
use for this?
The 2023 mix,
Okay.
the one from the red and blue.
Oh, you're using the AI mix? Oh.
What difference does that make? It's the same song.
Well, the bass could be double tracked by Giles Martin.
By
or something.
Giles in the studio.
Yeah. it
We
could-
He
asked
just brought
Giles.
Paul in to do a new bass line.
Well, I don't trust you as much now. I think he raised the bass on that, which makes the bass 6 sound more like a Rick. On the mix I have, it sounds more like a
You
bass
should do
6.
the Past Masters version. That's a good one.
You fuckers. Making me do more work. What time is the scream in the song?
Hang on.
Scream.
Have fun editing this. This is I don't really
Who's
care
editing
what-
this one?
Michael is, I think.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, what a mess.
Well,
Did we lose? Was this a bad episode? Did we
no.
No, it's not actually.
We actually proved a lot.
we
The
have
drums, I'm impressed with the drums stuff you figured out.
you know,
Yeah, you're welcome.
you win some, you lose some.
Ryan, pull up the isolated vocal. This will be a nice palette cleanser. Skip to 138.
We're going to get a good scream here.
Ear bleach.
Oh, just
if
wait
you
and
will.
see.
Oh, look at that. That was amazing what I just did.
What?
That was John and Paul, I think.
Sounds
Was it?
like John. Yeah.
It sounds
You
like
don't even
both
hear
of them.
most of that on the song.
What was
You heard it here first, listeners.
Who wants to cover it with that?
Hey, that's John.
Sounds like Revolution 9.
How is that all on there?
It's the magic of AI.
Wait, did you do which version did you do that with?
Oh, it doesn't matter what fucking version it was.
No, I just
They're all
wanna
the
know.
Same song.
I just want to know which one was it.
Red and blue. That's all I've been using.
That's on the red and blue one?
Yeah. Do you want me to try extracting it from the past masters mix? Too?
I don't really care, but I was just like I didn't hear any of that before. Like most of so. Where is that on the song?
I don't hear it.
It's right after the solo.
That's not the same scream. The one he was doing was like in the middle of the solo. it came in like right. It's there.
There it is.
Wow.
Hold on. Is that
So there
on
were
the
two
other one?
screens, I guess.
Please rate your ads.
You have to rate your ad.
That's not there on Past Masters.
It's gone. Yeah.
He added that back in. The madman.
I want to talk to Giles
well-
about this because it's like,
Let me keep playing it because I wonder if we'll hear the other one.
yeah.
Where's
I don't
the
think
other
it's
one?
there. Yeah, I don't think it's there.
I'm so confused.
Oh boy, this is a.
That was
this
great.
is- Just
Should
share
we
one
try
more
to
time
reach
for
some
posterity.
conclusions? I'm sorry, go ahead, Dom.
I want to hear it one more time just for posterity.
I think that and the conclusion is we've proved that we can be just as unhinged if Paul's not here. Just the four of us.
Agreed.
He's not here to watch over us.
4 GigaChads. If we had to decide the basic track, we concluded Ringo's on the drums.
Yes.
So the piano, I'm leaning towards George. Can we be a democracy here?
Likewise.
4
I think,
hands for George?
I think I'm okay
Yeah.
with George on piano. That makes the most sense.
Then the basic
then-
track guitar part, Paul. On
Yeah.
the casino?
Yeah.
We determined John probably couldn't play that fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't hear John anywhere except that scream, right?
Yeah.
So Paul on the casino. Then when they do overdubs, Paul does the casino again through a twin reverb probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe if we want to go with the interview, maybe George plays the bass along with the guitar, or Paul just also does the guitar overdub. And
I'm going to vote George on the bass 6, because to me, my gut instinct says that's a bass 6.
Yeah, my gut
when I first
instinct
heard
says
it.
it's a bass 6 as well.
Yeah.
There are a
Oh,
few
yeah,
little
4
weird
hands.
fills in there, but
4 hands for bass 6? Okay. George on the bass.
some of those fills don't. I mean, we don't hear George on bass too much. They're definitely not Maxwell Silverhammer style bass playing.
It's a
But-
ripping bass line.
Oh, totally.
But it's also like he's not going to be thinking of a bass 6 in the same way as the jazz bass.
Well, he's going to be thinking of it as a guitar.
And
Listen,
there
I
were
mean-
versions of that same riff on the demo he did, so
Yep.
he had that in mind already.
Yeah. Well, we know if it was Paul, then he's trying to emulate the exact same thing. But
I think we cracked it. I think we did it.
and no one
yeah.
can question us because there's no time machines. I know there might be some hidden thing in there that like definitively says something about the guitar, but I don't see it.
I don't think we're ever going to definitively know. These are just our best educated guesses.
I mean, if we get take 1, 3, and 4, maybe we would know.
Right.
I think there are ways to figure it out without pictures or video. Like there are fingerprints. There's evidence. Like for drumming, I think it's easiest because you can hear. Oh, Ringo played that fill on Rain, the same one he
Right.
played.
The What
in
Goes On
Underground
thing,
Shoe.
that's crazy. Those
Yeah.
are like identical.
That's how I know that Ringo's on Dear Prudence. The last fill he plays at the end is the same as the fill in The Word, note for note. A fill Paul had never played. Paul doesn't do that type of fill. So yeah, there are ways to decode it. I guess guitars and piano is a bit harder because one of them could have taught the other how to play it. Like piano, I'm still not sure on for Old Brown Shoe because George could have taught Paul how to do it. Paul's a great pianist. So the mystery deepens.
Well, commenters, if you've made it this far, tell us what you think.
You guys keep down talking this up. This is a great episode. Stop it.
I'm not down talking crap.
You and Ryan.
No.
Fight.
I just feel very unsure about it, and
Well, I genuinely want to know what other people think about it.
I do feel pretty strongly about the bass 6 tone. But as in the video of Paul playing on the Telecaster, I mean, for all we know, Paul played on the bass 6 upside down.
That would have been more impressive.
That
than
would have been
anything else
kinda
on the
difficult.
record. 100%.
Sam, can you do that?
play left hand?
Play left
Play
hand.
lefty
I
on the
wanna see
right.
it.
No.
Do we have any more gear comments before we hit final thoughts?
Well, the piano is definitely the Mrs. Mills like tack piano, right? So
Yep, that's in the
that's-
notes. Yeah.
Do any of you
That's
guys
pretty cool.
have the SpitFire Audio Mrs. Mills piano VST?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Honestly, I should have asked you to record Old Brown Shoe, at least a sample of it on the Mrs. Mills piano, but just to see. Because I believe I used to have it. I believe there was a preset where you could add the text.
Yeah, you can change the character of the tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I'll record a demo. We can insert it right here, listeners. Here it is.
Oh, that was so accurate.
Wasn't that close? That was so
was
great.
I think that piano is on Carousel 44 by the Zombies.
Yeah, 100%.
It does sound the same. You know what we didn't talk about is George played this live in 1991 with Eric Clapton in Japan.
And he plays bass.
No, he plays a Roy Buchanan blues
What?
master.
Yeah, what does he play? I
That's a
haven't
Roy
seen this.
Buchanan blues. It's just guitar.
It's a telly with like EMG.
Does he do the
active
thing
pickups
while
in it.
singing?
No, he just plays the straight.
Oh, that's
Just
lame.
basic rhythm.
Loser.
We should also say that coincidentally, the day we filmed this, the George Harrison YouTube channel released a Conan O'Brien performance of Old Brown Shoe. A great omen for this filming.
And
And
it
if
was a
you,
killer performance.
Yes.
If you know Conan, tell him we want him to come on and talk about all the guitar things.
We have hot
Genuinely,
wings.
yeah.
We can
Yeah.
entice them with hot wings.
We don't have a redhead either on the podcast. So
He can be the tallest person to be on the podcast so far.
Perry's up there, though.
Is he?
Oh, that's right. Perry's a
I think
giant.
Perry's
I forgot.
6'3". Yeah.
Okay.
Conan's like 6'5". So final thoughts, Old Brown Shoe, a B-side, a little-known Beatles song, a Harrison outtake. What do we all think? Is it one of the best underappreciated Beatles songs? Is it a
I think
throwaway?
it's
It's
better than
underrated,
favorites.
for sure.
I think it's better than For You Blue.
Agreed.
It's a killer song. The solo is one of the hardest Beatles songs to learn. It's so fast and it's doing chromatic runs and the vocals are awesome. The screams are great.
Oh, do we want to touch on how the vocals were done before we do anything else?
We
Just-
mentioned
just
it briefly. It was in the
touch on it,
control
yeah.
room with the speakers going. So usually you wear headphones in the live room to do vocals, but George, maybe because he was lazy, I don't know, but he decided to do it in the control room with the speakers, no headphones,
Which is why you
creates
get
that
Bleed, yeah.
phasey thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool though.
So, was it Take 4 was the one that was used? That's right. So, would he have been singing on that?
If it was like take two, yeah.
Yeah, but that got scrapped, that vocal.
Yeah, maybe if we listen to like the isolated drums, maybe there's some bleed or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Well,
Give me a minute. I can do that for you.
Uh-oh.
La la
Well,
la.
I just wanted to say, I think this is actually one of the better of the underrated Beatles songs. Like, as you said, it's a rocker. It's got one of the best solos, one of the best bass lines, one of the most complicated drum lines. I guess the only bummer is that there's no John. I think John could have added a great rhythm guitar part, some screaming vocals.
I think
but
he was
guess-
screaming on it. He's there wearing headphones in the overdub session. I think he's on the backing vocals.
on the background vocals.
We should have
Yeah, he's
gotten
just not playing an
Erevon's guy.
instrument.
Yeah, I guess I will ask Tom Hartman. Tom, once you see this episode, tell your story in the comments. Tell us about how you were there, what you saw. Sorry, I didn't invite you.
He's
We'll
going to
have
say,
on in
you
the
all
future."
got it wrong. I played bass.
He stole it from the cabinet, the closet.
Dom, what are your thoughts on the song overall?
I love the song. I do. It's a great song. Sorry, I sound like repetitive here, but no, definitely underrated. But it almost goes hand in hand in terms of like mysteriousness, as like, you know, Rain. Like, who's playing what guitars, at least on Rain, where it's like you don't really know what's going on. It's right there in front of you, but
If there ever was footage of these sessions, it would be so crazy to see, right?
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
We'd be wrong about so many things. Well, what's
But no,
crazy, if they just released every piece of audio, basically all these problems go away.
We wouldn't have a show anymore.
Right. Well, the show would
put out
be
of
like,
business.
we listen to it so you don't have to.
Yeah, those are my final thoughts. I think it's a great tune. Very underrated.
But I think we at the very least proved Giles wrong, which is something.
Sam, do you have final thoughts on the track that you haven't mentioned already?
Was it Ballad of John and Yoko was the A-side? Or, wait, what was the
that's
A-side?
A crime. What the heck?
Ballad of John Yoko was an A-side. Was this the B-side to that?
Ugh.
I'm going to get yelled at for not knowing.
You're the history guy, Ryan. What are you doing?
It says that...
I don't have the book. I'm powerless.
Yeah, Ballad of John and Yoko was the A-side. It's like, it's interesting because it's an in-between period between Get Back and Abbey Road. They were back in Abbey Road Studios, but there's something kind of strange about the sessions because Ballad of John and Yoko is just John and Paul, which is
I
so
still
weird.
find it crazy that Ballad of John and Yoko was an A-side.
That's awful. Like,
And it went to number 1.
it's a horrible song.
Yeah.
That song
They
charted
should have
higher
put
than
out
Strawberry
like
Fields.
2 of Us as the single or
Yeah.
something better and more commercial. It's so self-indulgent and narcissistic and
Oh, that's John Lennon for you.
yeah. Christ.
You
know it ain't
easy. Banning this song everywhere.
I mean, it doesn't.
Ryan, did you have
matter.
any thoughts you haven't mentioned yet?
It's the Epiphone Rivoli bass. No, I think I basically said it all. I think for songs George whipped up the night before, I would say it's up there.
Let us know what you think, commenters. You've heard our 2 cents. We want to hear from the people.
We may not have had a full conclusion, but we had a conversation. And
No,
that's
we
all.
did have a conclusion.
We've had many conclusions, Ryan.
Many, yes.
Where have you been during this episode?
Pay
Not
attention.
here. Not with us.
Apparently not.
Somewhere else. Let us know who played the bass, who played the drums, who was on piano, what guitar was used in the solo, who played the solo. Is it a good song? Is this a good podcast? Should we have done this?
Should
Is
we
it
be
time to
calling
quit?
it GTE or is that douchey?
No, it totally is. That means my poster in the back means nothing now.
All right, guys. See ya next time.
See ya.
Farewell.
later.
See you guys.
Paul, real quickly, can you react to just Old Brown Shoe in general
Yeah.
on this so we have it for the other thing?
What do you mean?
In the episode,
we
we
didn't-
say,
we
like,
didn't
now
tell
we're going to
him."
insert Paul's reaction, what he thinks about Old Brown Shoe. Paul, take it away.
Hey, Old Brown Shoes, great song. Love it.
No, you have to be more upset than that.
Well, I
Perfect.
don't. What are we talking about? I don't know what
Just
you guys-
something
This is the thing
comical,
where
like,
we thought
it
you were gonna be
sucks,
like, this
and
song
then
is
that's it.
terrible. I hate everything.
It fucking
Oh,
sucks.
I like
I
that
hate
song.
it.
I don't mind it. Old Brown Shoe song sucks.
Perfect. Perfect.
That's all we
no-
needed.